lack of confidence, lack of self-worth, no skill set to bring to the table. Everyone's like, well, what are you passionate about? Well, what are you good at? And I'm thinking, I was an average soccer player. I feel like I was an average firefighter, not because of ability, but because of how I applied myself. I did just enough to be above average.
Your thoughts lie, your feelings mislead you, and my guest today is going to show us how we can go ahead and act anyway and change our lives. Mike Hall, welcome to the First Year Agent Podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Rob. I've been looking forward to doing this.
Yeah, brother, I'm excited about today because I know you're going to share your personal story of dealing with the lack of self-confidence and dealing with just misleading thoughts and feelings lying to you, acting like you don't have anything to offer this world, and even in the insurance business. And so you want to stick around and watch this to the very end, because not only is Mike going to share his story with us today, but he's also going to share some powerful tips for brand new agents. So Mike, if you don't mind, just give us a 30,000 foot view of your story, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. Okay. So my parents met in Bible college. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. My dad was a preacher when I was growing up, so lived underneath that microscope. I've moved around probably 7 or 8 different schools, lived in probably 12 to 14 different houses growing up. Always always dealt with a lot of anxiety. It didn't have a word to it then. I just know that I didn't feel comfortable where I was. Got to high school. Didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. Didn't feel like I fit with any kind of group of person. Felt lost. Everybody else knew where they were going to go to college, what they were going to study, what they wanted to be for their career. And to be honest with you, I was lost. My goal, I always wanted to be a fireman. I knew that was a way I could help people without directly engaging with them. My grandfather did it. I did it as a volunteer from the time I was 14 on. And I was blessed to be able to get in that career as a paid career at the age of 20. I joined the Marines at 18, and I was hired in as a career fireman at 20.
Wow. And so tell me though, like with all of this story, when did this lack of self-confidence, or when did this lack of value, if you will, when you just felt like you didn't really have anything to contribute to the world, when did you start seeing that begin to come up in your life?
Early on, I remember being in 4th and 5th grade, and again, just not feeling like there was, just not feeling like I always had friends, but always felt like the outsider, always felt like the follower, always felt like, I love my dad to death. He's an incredible father. He's an incredible leader. He's an incredible grandfather. But during that time in my life, really the church was his number one passion. I didn't really see him a ton. Really, my mom was more involved in my life. So I think I didn't have that male role model to kind of speak success into me early on, to encourage me, to kind of lead me through that. And so it really wasn't. So just to fast forward on my story a little bit, I lost the bet at 18, joined the Marines, ended up becoming a firefighter at the age of 20. Loved what I did. I was in the Marines for 6 years, got to the end of the contract, didn't feel like I did my job as a man, a Marine or American, volunteered to extend 2 more years, connected with an infantry group, went to Iraq in 04, came home in 05. Fast forward to 2009, got some lung issues from my time overseas, and I lost my job in the fire department. Barely got through high school, ran from college, had no clue what I was going to do, and I was like, man, what in the world am I going to do now? Somebody had introduced me to insurance. I was making $60,000 a year, Rob, as a fireman after 10 years. They hired me at $19,000 a year. And I was thinking, man, my thought process was so broken that when I actually saw this business, I thought that I was so far away from $100,000. I thought that was for other people. And so when someone approached me about selling life insurance, they said I could make $100 to $150,000 a year.
Wow.
I was like, thank you, but no, thank you. That's not for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Right.
until 6 months later that a friend of mine that was very successful invited me. I still didn't have a desire, but I didn't want him to see the fraud that I thought that I was. I thought I would
Mm,
show up and save face, look interested, and at the end tell him thank you, but no thank you, and then move on. But then the guy said a few things in there that really caught my attention. One of the things that he said, well, one, he put the numbers up on the board, and I was thinking, come on,
yeah.
man. Ain't no one
Yeah.
making that kind of money. Work it like
Right.
just be a straight shooter.
Right.
But then he said, hey, all it really takes to succeed in this business is you've got to be teachable and you've got to be willing to outwork other people. And so all the way up until that point in my life, I feel like that was the consistent thread through my life. Lack of confidence, lack of self-worth, no skill set to bring to the table. You know, everyone's like, well, what are you passionate about? Well, what are you good at? And I'm thinking, well,
Right.
I mean, I was an average soccer player. I feel
Yeah.
like I was an average firefighter, not because of ability, but because of how I applied myself.
Sure.
I did just enough to be above average, right?
Right.
Average Marine, and when I got involved in the network marketing at the age of 2021, that's really the first time that I ever put my head inside of a book. And that's when I understood for the first time that if I changed the way that I thought, I could change my decisions, which would change my results, which would ultimately make me feel better and become more and be more valuable. I learned that I didn't have to believe the narrative that I had told myself. One of the things I never realized growing up was that I saw myself different than other people saw me. And to be honest with you, I still struggle with that at some level.
Sure.
I was just
Right.
on a meeting last week with Cody and and Rocky Garza, and we were talking about something, and that's something I spoke with Rocky about is I see myself differently than other people see me. So it's something that
Yeah.
even today I've got to be very proactive with.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Used a very strong word that I didn't want them to see the fraud that I really was. That's a pretty powerful statement, but I think I believe it's true because you know this and I know this, and for those that are watching today, it's so easy to create these identities around narratives that we've told ourselves, around narratives that maybe other people have spoken into our lives as well. Or, and I know you're a faith based guy, or even the narrative that our greatest enemy, right? Satan tries to tell us that you're no good, you're no this, you're no that. And then you begin to build this whole identity around it, and it affects everything that you do. Pastor Craig Rochelle says, that our lives are going in the direction of our strongest thoughts. So I was
Mm.
thinking about that while you were sharing that story. So maybe there's someone watching today, right? They're getting in this insurance business. Maybe they're like you. They're going, come on, this money's too good to be true. And maybe they're a fraud. If I could just be that real about it. What was the final, or what was the beginning of the breakthrough for you? Like you said, you got your head in a book, but what was it? Was it a word? Was it a phrase? Was it a specific meeting? Was it you just telling yourself, hey, I have to change my life?
Yeah. And let me just go back a second too and tell you
Yeah.
some things that I think contributed to that I've been thinking about
Sure.
the last couple of days. I don't know that anybody ever came out and told me that I wasn't good enough to do anything or that I
Yeah.
shouldn't do it. I had people that loved me that I was around. I was always in a safe environment, but I feel like indirectly people were telling me that. For example,
Sure.
when I decided to join the Marines, people told me, well, you're a sweet boy. Like you realize that this is serious and that you could really go to war.
Right.
And what do you have to prove? And why would you do that? I
Right.
decided to get network marketing, like I told you. And people were saying, well, why are you playing businessman? Why don't you just go out there
Right.
and go to college and get an education and get a job? I love my in laws, but even after I got into insurance, they're like, when are you going to go get a real job? You know,
Yeah.
and my fireman friends would say, "Here comes Mike. He's going to try to sell you something."
Yeah.
And so just little off comments like that throughout my life, people in my church, people in my family, people around me, great intentions. They meant well. They didn't mean harm
Sure.
by it, but it does harm because
Yeah.
like, words are things. Words are
Yeah.
powerful. Whoever the knucklehead was that came up with sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, didn't understand people. And so
Right.
when I've got people feeding that to me, and then I'm negative, and I talked about this to a group of people yesterday, I said that the way that I'm wired is if I'm not proactively putting something positive in my mind, my
It's good.
mindset is naturally going to be negative. I had Dallas Keithley in my office this week, and we were doing some Medicare training in the other room. And he was asking, he said, "What are some things?" He was asking the group. We had 8 or 10 Medicare agents in my conference room. He said, "What are some things that are negative about yourself, or things that you don't like about yourself, or things that
Yeah.
I forget how he worded, things are true that are negative?" And I said, "Okay, well, one of the things I mentioned was that I'm naturally lazy." And then he said,
Mm,
"Well, what are some things that are true about, what are some positive things about yourself?" And I
sure.
said, "Well, I'm a hard worker." And he pointed out to the group, he said, "Well, look, we've got two contradicting things here." And I said, "Well, I'm naturally wired to be lazy, but I'm intentionally
Yeah.
a hard worker. I had to make a decision that me getting uncomfortable and doing what I didn't want to do was more important than the current moment." So to answer your question, really, when I got involved in network marketing and I saw books, books were the beginning of it, but really getting around the right people to stretch my mindset, to stretch my thought process, to stretch my vision. It's kind of ironic that we're having this conversation now. We just went to 8% a couple of months ago, and
Sure.
when I put on Facebook that I was flying out there, the very first leader that ever really made a huge impact in my life had reached
Yeah.
out to me. We had not talked in years, and he said, "Hey, I see you're coming to Dallas. I'd love to pick you up at the," or he said, "I'm going to pick you up at the airport." Came up, picked me up, drove me 40 minutes to my hotel, and we got to reconnect. But he was really the first person
So
that
good.
spoke enough confidence into me. I'll tell you a quick story. I got involved in network marketing. I had this lady I was working with. She was this little pit bull, probably like 4'7", 4'8", 100 pounds, but like someone that she scared me, someone you didn't mess with. I was going to go do a home meeting for a room full of millionaires down in Florida. Here I am, 20 years old, 21, terrified. Well, she stands me up at the airport, like doesn't come, doesn't show up. And
Uh,
I'm like terrified. I'm thinking, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? Well, I called this guy up that I'm talking to you about. And this guy said, and I'm going to paraphrase it. We're talking 25 years ago, but he said something to the fact of Mike, do you know any of these people? And I said, no. And he said, well, you've been doing this long enough. Like, you know what you're doing. He said, you could be anybody that you want to be when you walk into that room. Go in there
mm,
confident in who you are and your message. I'm going to be right here if you need me. I'm a phone call away, but you've got what it takes to do this. You were born to, like,
right.
you've got it. You can do it. And he really just spoke that encouragement to me. And I just got to share with him 2 months ago when I saw him, or last month, what a, and for a lot of people, that's not a big moment. That
Sure.
was a big defining moment in my life.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've not forgot it in 25 years. So surrounding myself with people like that to speak life into me, to speak success into me, to tell me that, hey, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a hard road. But first of all, you're not who you say you are. You're not who you think you are. And
Yeah.
you can change that narrative if you want it bad enough.
Yeah. I like what you're saying. I like to say it this way, Mike, that the identity that we live from daily will determine the impact that we make daily. Right. And if I'm living from a lie identity, then I'm not going to make much of an impact, right? I'm going to be mediocre. I'm going to be average. I'm going to get into what I call that, just that hamster wheel of just that narrative. And because I've been there too, it can be really difficult to break out of that, especially if it's something that's been going on for a long time. I also like the other thing that you said in regards to content. You know, I just did a video on this about the power of learning the habit to encourage yourself, which I believe is an often overlooked habit in our industry, because this industry can get very negative and very lonely really, really fast. And two of the things that I mentioned in the video, number one was content, because I believe the content that we consume the most is what we become the most like, whether that's listening to podcasts, right? Whether that's watching videos like this, whether that's, whatever, reading books. But then the second thing I said was the power of community, that circle, going to conferences, having those people to speak into your life on the days that you can encourage yourself. So I'm definitely glad you brought that up, because I believe a lot of people in this industry, they get into this industry, and it's nothing against family and friends and all of that. But you know this, for a season, you may have to change that circle. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean they're not valuable anymore, but you need people in your life that can speak what I call fresh wind into your soul, right? Because life is already beating you down. Then you get in this industry and no one's answering the phone. You're getting rejected like crazy. Doesn't seem like nothing's working. You need to be able to have people like that gentleman that spoke into your life. So fast forward today, because you said something that really intrigued me. You said, I have to be very intentional, right? Because I'm like you, it's easy for my personality, even though I'm very driven, excited about life and love people. It's very easy for me to go turn on Netflix and binge watch that sucker all day long. But I have to be very intentional as well. So talk about that. Let's expound on that a little bit, because maybe there's some new agents today that are battling that, and what's something practical they can do to begin to break out of that cycle?
Yeah, well, the first thing is they need to have somebody that has made it further in life and in business that they have, that can speak some truth into their life, and they
That's
can
good.
see the potential that they have there. And they can point out the lies. That's one of the things that Rocky was able to tell me the other day. He's like, Mike, every time I've heard you speak, it's been incredible. Like, people have said this and
Yeah.
they've said that. It's odd that that's how you see yourself when everyone else sees you different. So are you the liar, or are we all the liars? It's just like something's
Right.
got to be wrong there. But at the end of the day, Rob, I think what it really comes down to, and Brian Askins talks about having a fire in your belly. What it really
Sure.
comes down to is you've got to want, and if you go back and you watch any successful person I can think of, um, there's no such thing as an overnight success unless you look at the 20 years of struggle before that. You look at Steve Harvey, lived out of his car. Michael Jordan kicked off his high school basketball team because he was average. All these people that failed in life. Abraham Lincoln, that lost like 13 or 16 elections before he ever even became president. All this thing, there's adversity that you're going to have to go through. You cannot
Sure.
grow without pain. It's going to take sacrifice. I just spoke about the identity thing yesterday to the group and how it takes sacrifice to win. And at the end of the day, uh, I'm surrounded by an incredible family and incredible people. They want the best for me, but they're
Yeah.
ignorant because they only know what they've been taught, and that's to go get a good education, go get a job, and work for somebody else for 40 years. I had to want to break that chain in my family more than anything else. Coach Michael Burton, his book "Flip the Switch," talks about how we've all got two versions of ourselves: the
Sure.
version we are and the version we're capable of becoming. He also
Good.
talks in that book about how early on, when he was a preacher, he did a eulogy for two different families of somebody that passed away that he didn't know. And he went and visited both families, asked them about them. And the people said, he asked them, what did they do? What kind of difference did they make? Tell me a little bit about him. What kind of person was he? And they both gave a similar answer and said, well, you know what? He didn't affect anybody. He really didn't have any ambition. He really didn't
Right.
accomplish much. I guess he was just a good person. And for me, if somebody said that about me at the end of my time, I feel like that would be the biggest slap in the face to me,
Yeah.
to my family. So I feel like I've always felt like I wanted to do more and be more, but I didn't feel like I had what it took to do it. I didn't have the
Right.
resources. I didn't have the education. I didn't have, people kind of molding me and directing me, so you got to
Sure.
want it more than anything. There's a story about a guy that knew a Navy SEAL, and he said, "Hey, look, you've been really successful. How do I be successful?" And I'm going to
Right.
paraphrase it. He said, "Hey, meet me at the beach tomorrow morning at 5." Right? They go out and they get in the water. And long story short, the Navy SEAL grabs the guy and holds him under the water. And the guy starts, he loses the oxygen in his lungs and he starts fighting and now he's freaking out. He can't breathe and he does everything he can to get back up above the water. And he finally lets him up and he's like, "Why would you do that? Like, you trying to kill me?" And the guy said, "Well," he said, here's the key to success. When you want to win as bad as you just now wanted breath in your lungs, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
answer is just like Tom Brady says, you don't have to be special to have success. You
Yeah.
just have to be what most people aren't willing to be. And that's
Yeah.
consistent and disciplined. And you've got to be willing to work for it. I had to want this more than anything in my life. And here's the reality. It's come with a lot of sacrifice. I've
Yeah.
missed a lot of events. I feel like my path has taken longer than a lot of other people. I've had to put in long nights. I've missed vacations. I've missed, like my family just went away the last 3 years. They've gone away to Maryland for a month and I've not been able to go because there's a dream in my belly for me to go out there and become more. And if somebody like Mike Hall, that barely got through high school, that didn't see himself as anything, can have any level of success, how selfish would it be of me to not go find other people like me and speak life into them? And so the key is you've got to want it more than anything. You've got to understand that it's going to take sacrifice. And it's not my job or your job to tell anyone what sacrifice they should be willing to pay, but
Right.
there's going to become a cost. The cost is
Yeah.
different for everybody. There's no such thing with as success without it. You might see someone come in and have a lot of success. They probably already paid the sacrifice somewhere else in their life, but there's got to be growth. Just like when you go to the gym, you got to break that muscle down to build it. When I went to the Marines, they had to break me down as a person and rebuild me. Anything that's worth doing is going to take growth. Growth is pain, and you've got to see it through. The pain of where
Yeah.
you are in life has got to be greater than the pain that you're going to have to go through to become the person that you're capable of becoming.
Yeah.
Most people
And I
can do
see
it.
that.
Most people won't.
Yeah, I see that because, especially in our industry with so many agents that I call it getting seduced by the sexiness of our industry with the cars and the money and the this and the that. And then they don't realize that there is a huge sacrifice to get to the other side of that. Right. And a lot of them don't want to put the effort in, or they're so used to settling for average, for mediocrity. So I definitely love that. So our last few minutes here, let's talk to the brand new agent. If the mic call now, right? And by the way, I'll encourage you in this way. I love being around you. I love when I get to talk with you. I believe one of your greatest superpowers, and you may not even know you're doing this, is you just emit this powerful energy, just this aura about you. And it just makes me kind of perk up and even want to get better. So I just want to encourage you with that, that you are affecting lives, and you are infecting people with that passion in that energy. But let's talk to the brand new agent, right? Because this is what this channel's about: is giving back to an industry that has given me so much, giving you so much. Let's take a time machine and go back to the my call just starting out, knowing what you know now. Give me maybe 3 to 4 tips that you would give to the brand new agent, maybe to create momentum, because this, one of the hardest things to do, if not the hardest thing to do in our industry, is to create that initial momentum. Can you talk to that a little bit, and then maybe some other things that could help them achieve success faster?
Yeah. You know what? First of all, your feelings and thoughts are a liar. Get around somebody that is a growing leader that's got fruit on the tree. Not someone that's just a good talker, but someone that's got the lifestyle that you want to have. The biggest
Facts.
thing is
Yeah.
overwork it, don't overthink it. You've got to come in, and
That's
it's an
good.
activity thing. No matter what line of work you're in, you've got to go on your upline, on your mentor, your leader's thought process. They've gotten to where they have for a reason. They know what they're doing. It seems so foreign to me on what people were telling me to do, and so I kind of hesitated some on what I was doing. So take immediate action, go on their thought process, understand that they want what they want, what's best for you. Don't overanalyze it. I do. One of the things that someone told me early on was that your why was more important than the how. And that's true. You do
Sure.
have to know why you're doing something, and you do have to be connected to it. But where there's a contradiction in that is that you don't have to know your why or your purpose to get started. You have to go take action immediately. And when you do that consistently long enough, your why and your purpose is going to find you. I didn't want to
That's
sell
good.
life. I didn't want to sell anything, especially insurance, but I did love people, and I do want to speak
Yeah.
life into people. I do want to make a difference for people. And I didn't
Mm,
understand that when I was a fireman, I showed up at people's worst day. Today, I make the same type of impact on people, but I do it before their worst day. And I can't tell you as a believer, Rob, how many times this industry has allowed me or opened the door for me to just pray with somebody or just speak life
sure.
into somebody. Right. So who do you want to become? Surround yourself with somebody. If you've got a spouse, it's so incredibly important. My wife has been my rock through all of this. When I have been down and discouraged, she's been the one to be able to speak into me. The other thing
Yeah.
is you've got to get into a book or a podcast. You've got to have something positive on a regular basis coming into your brain so that you can deal with those negative thoughts. Another thing is that really we can't separate who we are in business from real life, right? So be who you are all the time. Be authentic. Don't try to manipulate anyone or anything. It's so important to fire on all cylinders. And I've not done a good job at this recently, right? But we've got to be taking care of our physical self, our body. We got to exercise. That helps us stress, and it gives us more energy. We got to work on our mental health. We got to be reading the books and listening to podcasts, and asking people for help, not being offended when they give us direction. We've got to understand that we've got to humble ourselves, take that, be teachable, and immediately apply it. And then we've got to also, and then we've got the biggest thing is we've got to work. We've got to work like we've never worked before. People come into being a business owner thinking, okay, now I'm the boss. I can take off. No, you've been spending your entire life building someone else's fortune. If you're going to set yourself up, and look, Rob, it's not about things, but money is like oxygen. You can't do much without it. I'm blessed enough that through this business, I was able to start a children's shelter down in Nigeria where we've got 32 kids. We've got down there, we take care of everything from their food, their education. We tell them about Jesus. All of this, right? But none of that could come if I didn't have the resources to do that. There's a local janitor here in my office building. Our team was able to fly his wife and his kids here from Africa a couple of years
Right on.
ago. I love giving back and doing things like that. But if I don't have that tool called money,
Yeah.
then I'm not able to do that. So I've got to get
Right.
that out of the way so that I can be a blessing to other people. Right. So come in. It's not about the stuff. Don't chase the money. If you chase the
Yeah.
money, you're going to be broken. You're going to be out of the business. Focus
Amen.
on becoming more valuable as a person. How can you raise your value level? If you can
Yeah.
become a student of life, a student of the game, become a better leader, father, mother, parent, son, daughter, and become more valuable, money is just a resource that's going to follow value.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I've heard it said before to not love and serve money, but to use money to love and serve people. And that's
Mm.
really what you're talking about. And one thing I want to say as we close today is about the spirit of offense. We live in such an offense ready culture, right? Everybody's ready to be offended about something. And I love what you said, and I'll put it in my words. Listen, if you're a brand new agent today and you have a mentor who's speaking to you, and it may be a little stern, a little firm at times, but it's because they love you, and you have You have the opportunity in that moment to be offended towards your purpose or to be offended away from it. But it's your choice. Mike, if somebody wants to reach out to you, they love this Mike call. They're like, man, Mike's speaking life into me. What's the best way to connect with you?
Oh man, you can reach me on social media. Michael A. Hall on Facebook, MA Hall79 on Instagram. I've got a website. You can go to trustworthy.life/get started, or you can just email me directly at mhall@trustworthy.life.
Okay. And we'll put all those links down and emails and websites down in the video description. So listen, if you've been motivated today, inspired today, you've been encouraged today, reach out to Mike, a great leader. Maybe you're looking for a new mentor or maybe a new home. Mike is a great guy to connect with. I know that he will be more than happy to meet with you. And Mike, I have enjoyed this last 30 minutes with you. You have spoken life. And to me, this is what I knew this was going to be today. And I know that you have spoken life into some first year agents out there that just maybe they're lost, maybe they're confused, maybe they're overwhelmed, maybe they don't feel like they have anything to offer the world and even this industry. But I believe that is going to change today after listening to your story and what you have shared with us. So thank you guys for tuning in today, and we'll see you on the next episode.